Hi everyone, in this Thinkcentral how-to video, I'm going to be going over the Tier 1 resources that are available in Math Expressions. The main intent of those Tier 1 interventions is to support students who just didn't quite get it the first time. They're going to be students who are more or less at grade level, but just might need a second chance to understand what content that you were going over. This would not be for students, well, it could be, but they would need additional support. This would not be for students who are below grade level and need a lot more additional support. There are some resources in Thinkcentral for those students, but I'll go over that in another video. So I'm in my resources main library, and I showed you how to get into here in another video. Now in here, they have the Spanish resources along with the English. I'm just going to filter through a little bit just to make it easier to find. And so let me go to English there just to filter to that. And you can see here near the bottom, there are these RTI resources available to you and your students. There's the Tier 1 Student Edition. There's the Tier 1, 2, and 3 Teacher Edition, and then the 2 and 3 Student Edition. And I'll talk more about 2 and 3 in another video. But let me show you the Teacher Edition here and show you that interface. So this pops up a lot of hyperlinks that, let me clear this out of the way here first, that you can go to get to Tier 1 resources. So the Tier 1 resources are broken up by domain area. They're not organized by the curriculum directly, but I'll show you in a second the crosswalk that will help you with that aspect of things. But let me click on one here to show you the scope of the work here. So this is the operations in algebraic thinking. And you can see here the way it's organized by table of contents, that this is lesson 1 for the Tier 1 materials. This does not mean lesson 1 in your teacher's edition, just to be clear on that part. It's as if they just started over their lesson numbering. And then they have the topic that's being covered, and then the pages in this PDF where you can find those. And of course, there's your standard. So if I scroll down, this particular hyperlink also has NBT attached to it. That's a little confusing. I'll show you why in a second, but for now, let's just keep on going. And now this is lesson 1 that was at the top there. This is an OA, lesson 1. And the general idea behind these is that this is more your teaching that you would do. And then this is sort of the guided that you could do with students. So it's sort of the I do, we do, and then on the back or the second page would be the you do. It doesn't have to be done that way. You can definitely approach that in any way that seems to make sense to you. And so that's how they look. And there's always going to be 2 pages. First page is more the guided, more the we do part, and the back side is more the you do part. It does not have to be done that way. You can do it any way you like, but it's always 2 pages. Now, one thing I said a second ago is that this hyperlink PDF also has NBT standards here. So you would think that those would be in this PDF, and they're not. So if I go all the way to the bottom, the last lesson you can see here is 14, and the NBT are not in this PDF. It's just, I don't know why they did it that way, but that's how they did it. So let me close out of here. Let me go back to my little guide area here. I'm going to go to this one now, this NBT one, just to show you so that you don't get confused by this part, because it's just weird. I don't get why they did it this way, but now you see this one, you think, well, wait a minute, I was just on this one. I must have pressed the wrong hyperlink. And no, it's just that the way they organized it, they put the NBT here to continue the table of contents. And now this hyperlink will only have, well, you'll see more NBT now, and this hyperlink will only have the NBT lessons, and you'll notice it starts on 15, because again, their number system just continues. So just a little weird, just have to get used to it on that one. Now those are the way the lessons look. And let me refer you to a guide that will help you with how to know what to assign based on whatever you're working on. So There's some other things we could look at here. I'm just going to go to the crosswalk and show you that one. That's probably the most useful at this time. The crosswalk is a guide that matches up the textbook, which is your unit, your big ideas, your lessons, which is over here. And that matches up that with the lessons in the Tier 1 PDFs that I just showed you. And again, a reminder that this numbering system is different than the lessons here. So in other words, lesson 15, well, there's not one in this one, but let me use 14. Lesson 14 in the textbook is not necessarily tied to lesson 14 in the Tier 1 interventions. So the way you might think about this, in a brick and mortar, when we actually had a lot of time to teach math, we had a lot more minutes, then it might make sense to do your lesson 1 in the textbook, and then you get some data from them, and then you get a list of your students who are still struggling, who are almost there. They might just need a second chance, and then you could pull out in a small group, maybe next day or same day, the Tier 1 lesson that goes with that. In the environment that we are now, that might not be feasible, so it might be a little more like sort of an if-then, ignoring this, and just thinking about what concepts you notice that they're struggling with, and then maybe intervening during your small group time in the afternoon, or even during your math time, and looking at it more like ignoring this and just thinking, oh goodness, they are really struggling with rounding numbers. Let me go to this resource here, this 19, and pull that out. So more of like, if they're struggling with this, then I'm going to go over to this. You'll notice on some of these, they have 2 different lessons that you can choose from. You can just think about where your data leads you and then choose the one that makes the most sense. The things that are a little disorienting too here is that this whole big idea all leads to the same Tier 1 lesson. So this is worth noting too, for these Tier 1 lessons, there's not necessarily one Tier 1 lesson for every lesson in the textbook. Just to give you some idea, we go all the way down here. Just to give you some idea, every grade K-5 has 150 lessons in math expressions. And in this case, this one only has 103 Tier 1 lessons to support those. So there's definitely less scope with the Tier 1 lessons. So those are the Tier 1s. I could say a lot more about this, but I want to keep it as simple as possible just to get into. But I want to point out a resource that we have in Roland to help you get those assignments pushed out. So let me just go back over here and just refresh that this PDF has all of the lessons in one PDF. So it would be really difficult to assign this to students unless you're comfortable chopping up the PDFs. But actually, we did that for you. During the summer, those of you who taught summer school, you know that Vanessa, Elisa, and I worked on getting these uploaded to Seesaw, so those are still there. But what we did is we took each lesson in every single grade level. We took every lesson for Tier 1 for the major areas, and I'll show you that in a second. And we turned those into individual PDFs. So we took for this example here, lesson 16, we took the 2 pages, cut them out, made them their own PDF so that could be quickly assigned to students. So let me show you what that looks like. And I'm gonna put the hyperlink to that folder, excuse me, into the description of the video once I put this up to YouTube. So I'm over to my Google Drive right here. And there's a folder called Math Expressions RTI. And within this folder, we have all the different grade levels that we have adopted. And I'm going to go into one just as an example, but they are all the same. So I'll go into 4th grade, and then you'll see student editions. That's what we were just looking at, that we chopped up, and then the teacher editions. I'm going to ignore the teacher editions. Those are the same ones that you saw online. So there's really no reason to go online to get the Tier 1 interventions. You can just get them here. And then I'm going to go to the student editions. And then these are the full student editions that I showed you just a second ago. So again, there's no reason to go online unless you want to go there and get them yourself. But what we did is we turned these 3 major domains into individual PDFs. So we have the operations in algebraic thinking, and then we have over here the base 10 ones, and then we have over here the fraction ones. We didn't do them for the measurement and geometry. If that's something that you would like to have done, that if this is something that really helps and supports you, that is something we could work on when we have some time and things slow down a little bit. We could do that for you. But let's look at one example here. I'll go to the operations and algebraic thinking, and I'm going to do it in list form. So I think that'll be a little bit easier to see here. So these are the individual lessons out of all the tier 1 lessons. We took that PDF and we chopped it up into each lesson. So you'll see here's lesson 1 down here. And that is its own PDF now. So you can see here lesson 1, and it's only those 2 pages. Over here, lesson 2, and lesson 2, only those 2 pages. So these are chopped up and ready to go for you so that you could push these out to your students quickly through Seesaw or Google Classroom or whatever medium that you get them to. And again, we have those for the NBT, the OA standards, and the fraction standards for, in this case, upper grade. But really just the major work of the grade for now. So again, I will put the hyperlink into the link to the description and the YouTube video, and I hope that helps everybody. And if you have any questions, just email me at rrexer, and we will help you get going on that.